Welcome to Based On, an Adaptation podcast. I'm Pamela Portnoy. My guest today is my friend Katherine Gloekler, who is the co-host of the Out of It podcast. We'll be talking about the film Girl Interrupted, directed by James Mangold and written for the screen by James Mangold, Lisa Loomer, and Anna Hamilton Phelan. It is, of course, based on the novel by Susanna Kaysen. Just a fair warning, there will be spoilers. Hi, Katherine.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was actually just going to ask you about the spoiler rule on this podcast.
Oh, it's going to be so spoiled.
Okay. So I don't
Lots
have
of
to.
spoilage.
I'm free to spoil.
You are completely free to spoil everything. So, listeners, if you haven't seen this movie or read the book, highly recommend you go see it. We like to start off what were you going to say? I
was just going to say it's like a real account, like it's a real person's story. So I always think of those kind of works as, it's happened. It's free information there to everybody. It's a documented case. So spoiling, I don't think matters too much in this story.
Totally. And I feel like a lot of times, I can't promise this like in the future, but like a lot of the times I'm tackling things that have already been released like a while ago. So it's kind of like, come on, guys, if you want to listen, watch it. Or if you just want to listen without watching it, just know that we're going to talk about what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. And this is over 20 years old now. So I think the window has expired on spoilers.
Yeah, you guys, no excuses. So we like to start the show by doing a rapid fire quiz so that our listeners can get a better idea as to who Katherine is.
Okay. This makes me
you ready?
Nervous. Yeah, I'm ready.
You're nervous?
I'm like sweating. It's also 80 degrees, but yeah, I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, so are you ready to adapt to the rapid fire quiz?
Oh my God. Did you just come up with that right now? That's good.
No, I did it on the first episode.
Okay, let's adapt.
Katherine, book before movie or movie before book?
Typically book before movie, but in this case, I was extremely movie before book. I don't think I even knew the book existed when I first saw the movie. But usually I will like the movie better if I've read the book before.
Totally. Same exact answer for me.
But I'm also I'm also a lot more critical then, because it's like you're just watching the entire movie knowing the story and it's like, well, I don't know if I would have made that choice, or that's not how I thought of it in my head. So It depends. Mm-hmm.
Happy ending or shocking twist?
Shocking twist for sure. Your happy ending? Do you not say? If I were to really think about it, I appreciate both equally, but I kind of am an optimist. Okay. I mean, a shocking twist can be optimistic. I just like
both.
Yeah.
Okay, most devastating book death.
So, I don't know if I just don't read a lot of books that someone. Well, I don't know. I guess that's true, but I would say for me, the one that has always stuck with me that I remember the most is, I don't even know who the author is. I could Google it very quickly, but it was a book I feel like I got from a book fair called River Boy. And I was a kid and the grandpa dies in it. And I think I was staying with my grandparents for like summer vacation or something. And so I was with them when I was reading it. And for me, it just like really affected me. I was also just a lot younger. But yeah, anytime, pretty much in any movie or book, when like a grandparent dies, it like just kills me. So I'm going to say some book from the 90s from a book fair called River Boy, whoever.
How old were you when you read that one?
I was probably like, probably 11 or 12, something like that. So I think I was just also getting to the age where it's like, I was understanding that eventually grandparents die and like you love your grandparents so much. And so in the book, I just remember being like, I just remember that specific chapter so much. Like I couldn't really even tell you the rest of the book, but I just remember reading that and being like devastated. But
Totally.
yeah.
That's how I feel about Fox and the Hound. I don't know if you have ever seen that movie.
Probably
I couldn't tell you a thing that happens in that movie, but I do know it like really traumatized me because I know there was a death and like I never wanted to see that movie ever again.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was with Charlotte's Web too. I actually stopped reading the book Charlotte's Web because I knew it was coming. And I like knew myself enough in my childhood years that I couldn't handle it. And so I'm just like, that's it. The book is over for me at this point. I liked it so far.
It'd be interesting to revisit it to see how I feel now that I'm older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Favorite fictional couple?
Okay, this can be TV or movie. Actually, no, I'll stick with movie. Favorite fictional couple would be... It's Meg Ryan or I'm trying to come to it really quick. It's either When Harry Met Sally or You've Got Mail, but I'm going to go with You've Got Mail.
That's such a good choice. Yeah. Love that.
Honestly, any Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan like couple in any movie is my favorite couple. So
Sleepless in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. So good.
That's a good one.
So good.
Favorite film adaptation?
So I was actually thinking, because technically You've Got Mail is an adaptation of a play from like 1937. And then also Little Shop Around the Corner, or The Shop Around the Corner. But I'm going to say High Fidelity with John Cusack from the 90s also.
I haven't seen it.
Really?
Really?
Have you seen the Hulu show with
No.
Zoe? Okay. Well, I would recommend it. I feel like I relate to John Cusack like too much for my liking in all his movies, but that one's really good.
Fantastic.
If you like movies and also if you like if you've gone through a breakup, it's the perfect breakup movie. And also the series
High Fidelity.
High Fidelity. Nick Hornsby, I believe, wrote the book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good, and there's like a really good revolving door of his ex-girlfriends that come through. Like a lot of good actresses are in that movie as well. So I would recommend it. And Joan Cusack, who is like in all his movies.
I love Joan Cusack.
She's so good in everything.
She's so hilarious.
She's always like the most memorable part.
Totally. She I forget what movie, if it was 9 Months, I think, with Julianne Moore. Have you seen that one? I think Joan Cusack is in that, and it's probably one of the most memorable birth scenes I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. Okay, I do remember. I saw that. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while, but it's coming back to me.
Yeah, Hugh Grant, Julianne Moore, Tom Arnold, Joan Cusack.
Yeah.
So good. You know, the rapid fire never actually is rapid fire. But what you said about You've Got Mail and Shop Around the Corner, that almost could be, it's like an adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation, because I feel like it's almost also a Pride and Prejudice story.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, I don't think it's technically an adaptation as, like legally, as they say in the credits, because it's like, I don't know, is that inspired by, I don't know, like the jargon that they use for that kind of stuff.
It's so interesting. I need to look into like the legalities of like if they can say based on, or if they can say adapted for the screen by, or based on true events.
Yeah.
But like I know she reads Pride and Prejudice in the book, and I'm like, wait a minute, this story is kind of similar.
That makes sense. I think that was probably because she's such a book lover, and Kathleen Kennedy, I think is her name.
Kelly, yeah.
Kathleen Kelly, yeah. She's such obviously the bookstore. Yeah, I feel like there was a movie also, though, with Pride and Prejudice that was like made modern, but I can't think of it.
Bridget Jones's Diary.
For sure. Maybe it was that one. I just rewatched that one too. That is... I should have said that. That's a really good one. Have you ever read the book? It
was funny. Olga got into a whole thing on episode 1 about Bridget Jones's Diary.
Okay. Every single episode, I feel like might bring this up, because that was one of the first books I remember reading and laughing out loud while reading. Like, she's just such a funny author. And that is a perfectly cast movie. That is also one of my favorite adaptations. I will add that in here if no one likes my
Perfect
Cusack choice.
Least favorite film adaptation.
So I'm kind of easy to please, I feel like, with movies for the most part, but The Girl on the Train didn't hit for me. I remember really liking the movie and I remember really liking the book, and then when the movie came out, I like everyone in the movie, but it just fell really flat to me, which is sad because I love Emily Blunt and I liked her in it, but it just didn't compare to the book at all.
Is Girl on the Train written by the same author that wrote, and I'm going to totally butcher it in my tangent right now, but that film with the actress that was in, who played Jane in Pride and Prejudice? Isn't the person that wrote Girl on a Train the same author of multiple like thriller movies like that?
I know she has had another one that was kind of really well known, but I'm not sure if... Are you thinking of Gillian Flynn?
No. Have you seen Joe Wright's Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley?
Yeah.
So the blonde sister, the girl that plays Jane.
Oh, you're saying she was in an adaptation of this author also?
I think so, yes. I don't know why this is important to me, but I need to figure this out. Gone Girl.
Yeah, Julianne Flynn. We could have saved 5 minutes here. No, it's not that author. I know who you're talking about. That's the one who did she's done a lot, but it's a different author.
I confuse Gone Girl and Girl on a Train all the time.
Gone Girl is a really good movie. That is a great adaptation. Girl on the Train, not so much, in my opinion. Okay. But yeah, I was actually some of my answers, I was thinking about Gone Girl for a bunch of them, but she's such a great writer. And I think I don't know if this author I don't know if she had much of a role in the movie with kind of thoughts and opinions, but I know that Gillian Flynn did with that movie. So maybe, yeah, I don't know.
That was one of the gnarliest in Gone Girl. That was one of the gnarliest scenes at the end when she...
A shocking twist in that
twist. Okay, favorite actor, male or female?
Matthew McConaughey.
I love Matt McConaughey. Oh my god. Okay, great answer. Favorite fandom?
I am going to embarrassingly say Glee, just because I was in the Glee fandom. Yeah, and I was just really obsessed with Glee in a weird way. And so that's the only fandom I truly intimately know. Yeah. How
involved would you get?
I mean, I don't want to I don't know if I want to go back down that road here, but I was I definitely would read fan fiction. That's the only time I did get into fandom stuff. I didn't know about fan fiction until that. But also Glee is a Ryan Murphy show. And so usually after season 1 or 2, they tend to drive off a cliff and they just go totally haywire. So I feel the fan fiction that I would read was almost to supplement the actual lack of any sensible writing on the show. But yeah, I was super into that. I may have made a fan video here and there.
Oh my god, you're gonna have to send it to me. I mean, that's amazing. No, I've have this really deep appreciation for fan fiction because it also is a form of adaptation.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's better than the original work.
Hell yeah. And it dives into rabbit holes that you'll never, will never be shown to you by the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So you get to explore different things and different relationships within the universe that you'll never really get to see otherwise.
For sure. It's almost if you could pick your favorite kind of actors and then just put them in the story of your choice. You just kind of get to play with them and sub them into this story or, here and there. Because that's how, what was it, 50 Shades? Didn't it? It was inspired by Twilight fan fiction, I think.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was originally, I think, an Edward and Bella fan fiction writer who did it. And then they kind of adapted it Don't quote me, but I'm like 99.9% sure that's where the story.
If that's the case, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it just went off the rails.
Became its own thing. But I remember when that was really big, so many people saying like, go read fan fiction because there's like way better written stuff online than this book. But yeah,
there's some great stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. Fandoms are fun. I think I'm a little too old now to fully be in one, it might be like teetering on mentally not stable if I was in one now. Yeah, I know like Buffy the Vampire back in the day had a really good like rich quality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I feel like do you think that you say that like you would be bordering unstable because of like the level of escapism you can kind of dive into, and particularly because of the current climate we're in, we're even more inclined to dive into escapism?
I mean, I guess I could give myself a pass, honestly, if I were to get into it now, because there's like so much time at home to just read stuff and, scroll the internet. But I just think it's kind of something that it's like an obsessive sort of nature that takes over with that kind of stuff. And I think it's better to, I don't know. I think I should probably care more and put more effort into things in my real life than like fictional characters. But back then I didn't have too many things to worry about. I had a lot more time on my hands. So, yeah.
So interesting. Okay. We're almost there. If you could have drinks with any author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
So this one, for fun, like just for a really fun night, and I know it would be a good time, would be Truman Capote. I feel like he would have like really good conversation and just get really drunk. But if he wasn't available, I would probably say somebody like Emily Dickinson, or just a much older female writer, just because I think it would be interesting to kind of talk to someone who did something that was so not like a possible thing to do at that time. But
and would it be tea or would that be whiskey?
I think, you know what? I think that might be, or like an Irish coffee or something like that. Maybe.
Yes. I love how you said Irish.
I love it. Buffalo accent.
I think your accent came out a little bit on, like you almost like did an Irish accent when you said Irish.
So, Irish, I think, is one of the words that people call me out on every now and then. My vowels get a little off.
I loved it. Great answer. Favorite book or film quote?
Favorite quote is from the film Network. The whole scene that is I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. It just kind of, anytime I get to my boiling point or like really upset about something, I always just like say that and I kind of laugh about it now. But my parents too, if anyone is like upset when I'm at home, it's like, oh no, she's mad as hell and she's not going to take it anymore. But yeah, that scene, I don't know. I really like that quote. It's like a classic movie quote, I feel like.
It's very good. Very good. Very applicable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. I actually rewatched that scene recently and I was like, wow, this literally could be the newscast like tonight. It's so weird how stuff like that holds up, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Very sadly. Awesome. So we got through the rapid fire.
Hey, yeah, so rapid.
Very rapid. I'm still going to always call it that, but it's always going to take like 10, 15 minutes. I'm done. Very good. So you chose Girl Interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to tell our listeners that we were going to do New Moon from the Twilight series first. And Catherine's like, let's do Girl Interrupted instead, which I thought was like such a sharp turn. But yeah, I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did.
That was a strong pivot. Honestly, I was back home in New York during the depths of quarantine, and my goal was to reread New Moon, and then you had sent me an email kind of like with questions and things, and I was like, shit, I don't really remember that much from New Moon. Like she knows more than me now that I'm reading this. So yeah, Girl Interrupted, I know very intimately, and it's been one of my favorite movies for years, and I'm like #1 Winona Ryder stan. So nice. Yeah, this is an easy one for me.
Very good choice. I really enjoyed it. I watched it last night and I finished reading it last night as well. And I did the first episode on Harry Potter, and I noticed like the differences and the things that we talked about are just so vastly different because it seemed like sort of a relatively straight adaptation like of the book because the book is already a story, but this book is not a story. This book is a memoir and it's like a collection of observations, and so they had to build a story around that.
Yeah. I think that's probably the key reason for some of the differences that happen in the movie, just to kind of like have some type of tension or conflict where it's, you know, just like a little bit more dramatic. Whereas like her book is a lot more a series of vignettes of kind of girls who are in the mental hospital and things like that. Because there are some differences with like her professor. He's kind of, you know, her friend's dad in that in the movie, and then sort of the things that happen outside of the hospital, not really in the book, but it's good, you know, good content to watch, so it helps the story, I think. Did you prefer one or the other?
Oh dude, okay, so I prefer the movie, frankly.
Okay.
But also like I like storytelling. I mean, that's why I love to act, and I love to, you know, pursue the arts because I want to tell stories. I thought her memoir was fascinating, but also just, I remember watching this film. I watched it when I was way younger. I don't want to say it was like when I was 10. It was probably when I was like a teenager, early teen years that I watched it, and it scared the crap out of me. And I was just blown away by Angelina Jolie's performance.
Yeah, she won an Oscar for it, I think, right?
Yeah, she won the Academy Award for supporting actress in this one.
This is one of those really fun movies in the 90s where you watch it now and so many of the people in it are so talented and they kind of all went on to become really big stars. Like you have Elizabeth Moss, Brittany Murphy, Winona, Angelina, Jared Leto in it.
Yeah. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg, Vanessa Redgrave,
Jeffrey Tambor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really rich cast, and I love the casting choices for it. And I definitely already had those characters in my mind when I read the book because I had seen the movie so many times. But I mean, I think they did such a good job with the casting of it that it kind of helped me like the book a little bit more and relate to it more, I think.
Yeah. What in particular, like, really brought the character to life for you? Like, which character stood out to you? Was anyone vastly different than what you expected?
I think, like, I don't know, the Daisy character always just, like, I think if you're younger and you see this movie, that one always kind of sticks with you because it's just, like, such a disturbing arc for that character. I mean, I always think about, like, if I'm reading the book and I'm like a casting person or something, like how you kind of come to those conclusions, because there's not so many descriptive like adjectives in the book to kind of like, you know, find a person off of. But yeah, with the Daisy character, that one always just like, I don't know if I would have imagined her necessarily. I don't know. That one, it just kind of threw me. But
I've always thought Brittany Murphy was such an incredibly talented actress. But a lot of the movies, I haven't seen her entire body of work. I probably should. But a lot of the roles I've seen her in, she was just very sweet and kind of had a wholesome vibe. There are moments where she, like, a little edge would come out. But this movie, she really embraced a lot of darkness.
I think she I think she played it, like, I thought she was amazing in the movie, but just I think the character itself, and like, I don't know, maybe it's because I saw that first, but in the book they don't really have that story as, I think I just never knew what to make of her story because there's the whole element with her dad and all that, but in the book she doesn't get as much kind of like, she doesn't have as much written about her in the book, I don't think. And so I mean, I guess that's also just a difference in the movie because, you know, when they go to her house and all that, that's a little a change there, but I prefer her in the movie, obviously, because just because of that reason. She's a little bit more fleshed out, so to say.
Yeah, it's just like some very obvious changes that the screenwriters had to make to the book in order to create the story and like well-rounded characters instead of just kind of observations of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching this interview with Susanna Kaysen in real life, and she was talking about how she was really skeptical about them turning her memoir into a movie because it's not a story.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, I know they're going to have to change things and add things, and I'm probably not going to like the things that they change and add, but that's what they got to do to make a movie.
Mm-hmm. I think that just the fact that this movie came out in like 99, and I mean it's hard nowadays to, I think, get a movie with just like a predominantly female led cast, but I just think about getting this movie made and pitching it in like the 90s. It's just, okay, it's going to be like 10 crazy women in a mental hospital. It's just amazing that it even got made, and like that it.
And they tried it in a real mental institution while it was still functioning.
Oh, did they?
They did.
They shot it at the actual McLean place?
I wasn't sure if it was that exact hospital that they shot it at, but they shot it at a working one, and like they were bringing in like snow machines and painting the grass green, and like the patients would often ask like, what is going on? Like,
I think yeah. Oh, so the patients were actually there.
It was a working hospital.
Okay, I must have missed that. I kind of remember reading something about that in like the making of the movie, but the actual mental hospital that is like in the book that is referenced and that they're at in outside of Boston is really has an incredibly rich history with the people who went there.
Totally. Yeah. I think Sylvia Plath and Ray Charles
mm-hmm.
and a bunch of renowned artists
mm-hmm.
were there for stints.
Yeah, a lot of very creative, talented, dark people all spend time there. But yeah, so it is amazing that it did get made in it all. I think just that alone. You don't see movies like that too much, especially coming out of like the late 90s like that. But I don't know.
I know it's hard enough to do now, but like I can't imagine 99.
Yeah. It just I think of them like walking in and pitching it, and it's like, who's gonna see that movie? I feel like
apparently when Winona was a big champion of it, I think because she read the book and she wanted to get the movie made, and like apparently it took 6 years before they started shooting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because she's really young. Like in the story, she's only 18 years old. She's just out of high school, which the first time I had seen it, I think I assumed she was like a little bit older in the character in the movie, but yeah, she's really young in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so interesting reading because I saw the movie a long time ago, and when I read the book the last few days, the fact that Daisy scene didn't happen really kind of blew me away, because that's the scene that stuck out with me all these years and scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Yeah, because I think you only see in the book, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, you only see Lisa's character go into Daisy's room, and you know that they talk, mm-hmm. and then that's the last time Daisy was in the hospital, like, right?
Yeah, it's all very kind of, she's there, and then the thing with Lisa happens, and they have their little like exchange, and she comes out and, says what she sees in the room, but then it's kind of like, and then Daisy left and she killed her, because she kills herself in the book, I believe, but it's kind of just mentioned like, and then we found out that happened,
Yeah, like they weren't there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that scene is very dark, and also that song. Anytime I hear that song, ever since I saw that movie that plays in it, it
makes me sick. It makes me like so.
Yeah,
it creeps. Yeah,
for sure.
They really went for it in showing everything.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie.
Yeah.
It's sad. Were there any other casting standouts or storyline changes that really stood out to you?
I think Valerie was a big, like Whoopi Goldberg's character. Yes. I think that was a really smart choice to because she's much more of a presence in the movie than she is. And she's much more of like a catalyst for Winona's character in the movie. But I just think she's the perfect person to play that kind of like no nonsense, like you need to get over yourself and move on. They had really funny chemistry too. I think her and Winona.
Totally, and her and Lisa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was pretty good choice. Like a little bit different than the book, and then the book spends a little bit more time on kind of just the dynamic of like women in mental hospitals versus in the book or in the movie. I think Winona has a scene with Vanessa Redgrave where they kind of talk about like promiscuity and how you wouldn't have that conversation if she was a guy, but there's not like too much more on that versus like, you know, with that gender dynamic. And the book is just a lot more clinical, and it, you know, you kind of see her transcripts from and like what all the doctors had written and what was prescribed and the whole diagnosis. But so she really kind of gets into that more and kind of like processing what it meant to her to kind of receive that diagnosis. But yeah, it is interesting to see how she kind of talks about it in the whole aspect of it being in the 60s. And it's like you have women just kind of taking on a different role, but also, you know, she was just like an 18-year-old kid who, yeah, she was probably depressed, but she was also just dealing with, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And also wars are happening and all this change and unrest. And her dad, actually, I just found this out before, was like JFK's security, like national security advisor or something, I think. So, yeah, that was a little thing I noticed in the movie when she's leaving.
In real life?
Yeah, in real life, Susanna Kaysen's dad was. So in the movie, when she's leaving her meeting with the therapist who is like Red from that 70s show, the dad, you know, there's like a Kennedy sign on the front lawn, like a lot of little details like that. But I think that was kind of something that I liked in the book, just kind of her sort of explanation about and sort of question is like, maybe this was more because I was a woman. And, you know,
I mean, you see so many examples of that because I think in the book, they talk about how the disorder is more commonly diagnosed in women. Mm-hmm. And she makes it very clear. She's like, just note that it says it's more commonly diagnosed and not the disorder is more common in women.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we just care about it more when it's a woman.
And that like it was also compulsive promiscuity, I think was the term that they say is like they consider it a disorder as well. And she's like, well, how many men or how many people do I have to sleep with for me to be considered promiscuous? Is it 5? Is it 10? Mm-hmm. And how many people would it take for a man to be considered promiscuous? 20, 30?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever in my entire life, like after I read that, I was like, I don't think anyone has ever described a man as promiscuous. Like I've never heard it in the same sentence, that word.
And if they like, not that word, and if they like allude to like the idea, it's a word that's usually kind of having to do with being something positive. Yeah. But when it's used with women, it's never something positive.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's like today in 2020. So you can only imagine in 1960, it was probably like you were a menace to society if that was the case.
You're going to get locked up.
Yeah, basically. It's crazy. Yeah. I think just that diagnosis in general. And she had written the book, I believe, much later. Like she had been out of the hospital and she had gone through a lot of different things in life when she finally wrote it. But so she probably had more time to process and go back and think about that kind of stuff. It just, the diagnosis itself is so vague almost.
Yeah. Because when they were describing it in the book, they were saying things like mood swings and promiscuous behavior, bouts of sadness, having a problem being alone. I'm like, yes, there are extreme versions of literally any trait that you can imagine. But just reading those particular things on the page, I'm like, I could relate to that.
Yeah.
Anyone can relate to that, particularly right now. A lot of people are having a hard time being separated from other people right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was just shocking.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to read, but also I guess that's just kind of like the spectrum, like how deviant are you towards society? Like here's the norm, and then however far you deviate from that. But for me in quarantine specifically, it was like very fitting. Definitely a hard read. I do apologize for making you
Don't
read.
apologize. I'm so happy you did, because I learned so many things, and my perspective on it is really different now versus when I watched it when I was younger.
Yeah, I was saying though, when I was back home and we were all in like really intense lockdown, that I felt like a girl interrupted, because she kind of goes in and the movie I don't believe touches on the painting at all.
No,
Right? Yeah.
I don't think
So,
they do.
because I hadn't I had gone years and years watching this movie and just having this kind of like phrase in my head. I didn't realize that it was even from a painting. And so I looked it up after I had read the book, and it does apply to her. I like that whole scene where she's going to the gallery and she's looking at the painting, and I don't know if it was her husband or her boyfriend at the time. And, she's relating to it, and he's like, you always have to make it about you, like the artwork and everything.
It was so disgusting
Yeah.
what he said to her.
Mm-hmm. But that phrase itself, "girl interrupted," I always liked it. And I felt like I really could relate to it in the last like couple months, because you're just kind of like in a standstill place. Like you can't go forward and you can't go backward. You're just kind of stuck. It's like a little bit of a timeout almost.
It's a timeout from your normal course of life, like when you'd normally be going out and doing things and moving your life forward and dating and playing with your friends and moving your career forward. Everyone just got interrupted.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be
For sure.
inside.
That was really crazy, but I'm sure at the time too. And I just imagine being 18 and like all your friends are going to college. And she talks about it a lot in the book, when they would see the young nurses come in, all the students, and they were all like who those girls should have been if they were out in the world, like, getting a job and going to work and training and all this stuff, and like having a boyfriend and moving to an apartment. But they were kind of just on pause in this hospital for an indefinite amount of time. Yeah. But that I love her her monologue at the end of the movie as she's getting in the car and leaving in downtown plays.
Oh, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I think that's how I related to the painting, actually, because she talks about how she saw that painting for the first time before she was in the hospital, and then she went back after she was in the hospital, and she experienced it completely differently the second time around. And that's how I felt watching this movie, and that's how I feel a lot of the time with pieces of art and things that are subjective, and sometimes like even talking to someone that I haven't spoken to for a long time. It's like when your opinion about something shifts over a big period of time. So like when I first saw this movie, as I said before, I was so scared. I thought Angelina Jolie's performance was terrifying. I was very young and I didn't understand a lot of the concepts that were being tackled in the film. Mm-hmm. And watching it last night, I was really relating to what Winona says in the car at the end of the movie, because yes, objectively, these people have mental illness, but I was really relating to them. And I was sitting with myself, I'm like, is it a problem that I'm relating so deeply to these characters? And I felt better at the end when Winona says, and I wrote down the quote, she said, "Crazy isn't being broken or swallowing a dark secret. It's you or me amplified."
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's like such a good summary of it and how you can feel sometimes.
Who did you relate to most, or did you relate to any of them?
Winona Ryder I just like love her. When I saw this, I like idolized her in it, and then I think I went back and rewatched like anything she had ever been in. I just think she plays the role of somebody who's kind of kind of goes up against society a little bit and like the man, if you would say. But she also just has like those really big eyes where she can look kind of so in awe or like bewildered, like in Edward Scissorhands, like, you know, she's in awe of the snow when it's falling and that kind of thing. And when
so
she
much
walks,
expression in her eyes.
so much. And when she walks into the mental hospital and she's looking around, seeing everyone, and she's just like totally, you know, trying to figure out what's going on. And I just really like her. And I think it shows that she would be the one to kind of champion this movie, because you can tell that she really must have felt some type of kinship with this role and the story itself. And I think she did a really good job kind of playing it. And just, I mean, the men in this movie just kind of feeling frustrated at them not really listening to what she's saying, because it's like the men who are the ones putting her into this institution and locking her up, but
and trying to get her out before she's ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so her for me is, she's like maybe I'm biased because I love her, but I definitely related more to her, and I was younger, so I think this is kind of one of those pieces where you see it when you're younger and you get what she's talking about and you sort of understand her side. And then when you watch it as you're a little bit older, it's like, I kind of understand more like what the nurse is also talking about. Like I'm older now. And so I know, like, also just when you're 18, you don't know what's going on. Like, you are very young and you are extremely amplified for sure. But yeah, in like Vanessa Redgrave's character, I feel like I understood her a little bit more, you know, seeing it as I was older too. But yeah, I thought I really liked the book, you know, when I did read it after, and she kind of, she talks about in the book, like, just more the day-to-day type stuff that you kind of see it in the movie, but I don't know. She's like a funny writer too. Like, it's very easy to read. And I was kind of, she's very dry, obviously, but some of her comments were just, I really enjoyed. She has like a good wit and sarcasm to her.
Totally. I really enjoyed one thing that I thought that the film really did well when it came to portraying what she wrote in the book was the camaraderie between the women. Because the way she wrote, the vibe I got was that like she really cared about the other people that she was in the ward with. And when it came to scenes that they created just for the sake of the film and like for the relationships and conflict, like when they escaped through the tunnels to go bowling, and like when they were rolling around in the hallway, or all that stuff really brought to life the relationships that she portrayed that she had in the memoir. Yeah. What do you feel about that?
And like the ice cream shop scene.
Yeah,
it was and also when she kind of talked about how they would look out for each other, and then also just like look out for some of the nurses too, you know. And there was the one who she's really funny when she's talking about the nurses, and she's just like, she's crazy. Like, what does she know? She's in here, like, she comes in and screams at crazy people. She just has a really funny way of kind of relating the situation to, there's, I guess, something that, I don't know, even with society today where you're talking about it and it's like, yeah, it's insane that we do things that way. Like, it makes no sense. But she has a funny way of kind of like pointing that out to you as an audience, you know, just how messed up this whole system is inside there, and with all this, all the like therapy that they were supposed to do at the time. But yeah, I did get a good sense of the camaraderie there, and how, I don't know, you feel like, and I think that's why the Brittany Murphy scene is like very, very hard to watch, because there is kind of a feeling of they know how far to push each other's boundaries. And then that scene, obviously, like, it goes too far. But throughout this story, I feel like there's just like a good energy between the girls. Like, there's nothing that's really that hurtful, you know, intentionally to each other.
Right.
And but also, I was gonna say, when you were talking about how you relate to, and how you felt like you related so much to the end of the movie, her monologue there, she, in the book, Susanna Kaysen, I think she does a really good job of kind of talking about people and like how you interact with people after you've been in a mental hospital, and like when
Mm.
people ask you about it, and it's kind of like they just want to know if they have any chance of ending up in there, like what they have to do so they're not crazy enough to go to a mental hospital. Yeah, her kind of the way she writes about the real world after it I liked, which doesn't, because in the movie it just kind of ends with that chapter of the mental hospital, but you don't check up on Lisa again in the movie, which I was surprised to see in the book. So
I was so affected by the Lisa that was portrayed in the film that I was very surprised that in the book she was out and about and she had a child.
yeah.
And in the movie they kind of say the opposite happened to her. I mean, it's not like they said it outright. It's sort of implied because in the scene between Whoopi Goldberg and Winona, Whoopi Goldberg says, "Well, Lisa's been here 8 years. Please don't drop anchor here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then at the end when she leaves, like there's a shot of Lisa looking out the window, and it's just very clear to an audience that she probably never leaves.
Yeah, she seems like a lifer in that one for sure. And that's kind of like the realization Winona has, is to like, okay, I can focus and sort of like put my attention here and get out of here and move on with my life. So it was kind of nice to read that in the book, honestly. It gave me sort of a different sense of an ending, a possible ending for Lisa.
It made me happy for her.
Yeah. And just the because in the movie, I feel like you sort of think when she leaves, it's like she won't be back with those people again. Hopefully, like if all goes right in her life, she won't be back with them. But it was nice to kind of see in the book that in real life, she sort of did kind of keep in touch here and there, and she always thought of them, she mentions. So I guess, I mean, the camaraderie was real. But I did like that scene with the checking, or not the scene, but I like that part in the book where you see Lisa and she has a kid and she's kind of readjusted. So
yeah. I feel like I need to reread because I know that because I watched the movie and it had such a profound impact on me, and then I read the book, the characters were bleeding into each other for me.
yeah, I read the book having not seen the movie in a little bit. And so I feel like I was kind of mixing up some of the names, but then like a certain part would happen. I would be like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I get that now.
So I felt unsteady at the end when we saw Lisa. I was very happy for her, but at the end I was like, oh God, like, oh God.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Like, are you okay? What's happening? Because I was so jaded by like Angelina Jolie's performance.
Yeah. Was that your favorite? You as a dramatic actress, did you really like her part in the movie?
I absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. I thought Winona did an incredible job. I feel like she basically took this memoir and like sponged it like into her brain, because the memoir really allows you to see it through Susanna's eyes, and I feel like she just took that in and kind of embodied that, in my opinion. I don't know how Susanna feels about it, but like I thought she did an excellent job in her eyes, like you said, so expressive. And like she, I remember watching her in Coppola's Dracula, and I was just blown away by how expressive her face is, because she can do so much without speaking.
Yeah.
And you really get into her brain. So I loved her performance, but Angelina Jolie, like,
she's electric in it. You can't take your eyes off her when she's on screen.
Yeah, and she just like exudes that like she's the queen bee of this hospital. Everyone loves her, but is also terrified of her. And that's just such a tightrope to walk, and she does it flawlessly, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's very wounded, and that's why the last scene when like Winona like gets to her finally like breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's a heavy movie. It's not the easiest watch, but I really like it. And I like the songs that they use in it, and just kind of, I'm happy that I did like go back and read the book and kind of watch the movie again after that, because I think the book just has a lot. If you want to know anything more about like just the mental health aspect of it, that's not in the movie, which is a lot, but I think she does a really good job of, showing you basically her memoir of what it was like to go through this experience, which is, that's an interesting story for sure.
Absolutely. Were there any other observations that you had about it before we move on to our next segment?
I think I covered it. I just like to say that Winona was the perfect casting choice. And
I loved it all across the board, but she was fabulous.
Yeah, I think that sums it up from my end. Oh, Steven Tyler also and David Foster Wallace spent time there.
Really?
Yeah. So just speaking of movie adaptations, John Nash, who is the guy from A Beautiful Mind that Russell Crowe plays.
Yes.
Yeah,
Was he there?
He was there. And then after that, he kind of that's where he got his diagnosis for schizophrenia and paranoid schizophrenia, I think. Yeah. And then he went on to kind of, get treatment and then become like the really smart person that he was.
Wow.
Yeah. So just the history stuff, I think was interesting for me to take away from that. But yeah, it's, I loved it. I'm glad you watched and read it too.
No, this was so informative for me. I think what really stuck with me is like how much I related to the characters. And I don't know, like with everything that's going on in the world right now, like it really brings out the highs and lows within you as a human being. I mean, at least this is what I've been experiencing. Like if I have a really good day, it's the best day. If I have a really bad day, it's the worst. And it's all amplified, and like watching these characters go along with their instincts, it to just cope, and that's how they live their lives. I related to it, and sometimes I admired it because the reality outside of the hospital a lot of the time was portrayed as disingenuous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they talk about it all the time in the film, like who's really crazy.
Yeah. In the film and the book, there's so many moments where that question is kind of posited, like the ones on the outside who are just kind of going through their day to day and pretending like all this is fine. But, and then just as they were in the hospital, kind of all the draft in Vietnam and all that kind of just current world stuff that was happening at the time, just how you kind of relate to it differently when you're in a mental hospital versus like out in the world, actually seeing it firsthand. Just a lot of little observations there, but yeah, I do think in quarantine specifically, things do get amplified.
Totally.
Sometimes for the better, sometimes not.
Yeah. So thank you don't apologize for assigning this one. This was, I thought it was I got a lot from it. So thank you.
Good. I'm glad.
It was really good. So you mentioned you were a fan fiction fan. Other than Glee, are there any pieces of fan fiction in particular that you would recommend? Or was there, I doubt there's much, I'm sure there is, but I doubt there's much fan fiction in the realm of Girl Interrupted. But if there's any fan fiction period that stands out to you, if there's any recommendations you have, let our listeners know.
Yeah, I don't know how much fan fiction for Girl Interrupted.
Yeah, that'd be strange. I mean, who am I to judge? But yeah, it's not like
honestly, I'm sure there are, but yeah, and I've only read like Glee stuff, and that was years ago. I haven't really kept up with it, but there's always stuff on fanfiction.com. I believe it is. I'll have to see if I remember my password, but I don't have too much to recommend on that front. I'm actually just rereading parts of People's History of Howard Zinn, People's History of the United States, I think it is.
I have that one, and I'm trying to read that soon.
Yeah, it's a very hard read, but I just kind of went to the chapters on sort of the civil rights movement just to kind of try and make sense of things that are happening right now.
Yes.
And it's shocking how much it still is like applicable to today. And the book was written, a while ago, but Yeah, that's currently what I'm reading. So,
Nice.
yeah, but I'm trying to think. It's weird. I can't really. I haven't gone out to see a movie in so long, and so I don't even know like what to recommend there. But yeah, that's currently my book in rotation at the moment.
Beautiful. Katherine, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Where can our listeners follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Katherine, Katherine Gloek, pronounced Gleck from my perspective. Yeah, and then I have my own podcast, which is currently in a slow process of getting up and running with very strange schedules with my recording partner. But our podcast is called Out of It, and you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
You guys, I highly recommend you listen to her podcast. It is wonderful, and they've been doing such. They have, I believe, you have 2 episodes out right now, right?
Yeah, we have 2. We should be doing episode 3 this week, so hopefully by the time this goes out, that one will also be up.
I'm sure yours is going to be out before this one, but you guys definitely check it out. It's so insightful, so interesting. They have lots of like really cool arts, music, films, all the things that they talk about. Check it out. You'll love it. Lots of quarantine talk too lately.
Yeah. If I remember any fan fiction or come across any, I'll mention it on my podcast.
Go check out of It. Yeah, thank you so much, Katherine.
No problem. Thank you.
This was Based on an Adaptation podcast. I am Pamela Portnoy. We'll have a new episode out to you every other Monday. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Based on Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you again to Katherine Gloekler, Tiffany Haymoff, Jackson Palmer, Claire Palmer, Maya Ashkenazi, Jordan Ross Weinhold, Jason Crow, and Soundwork Studios. Thanks, guys. See you next time. I forgot where I left off, though. Oh, the camaraderie.